Hey there.
Hello, Glenn.
Hey, Glenn.
He's done servicing the other animals on the farm. Oh. Hello?
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you go.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you when you speak into the mic.
Oh, I said, are you done servicing all the animals?
Everything but the hay has been done. It's raining here, and it's slippery. It was plus 5 degrees, so it didn't freeze. I didn't have to change the water. So thank goodness, because it's not easy to walk around.
Yeah.
But I still have the hay to do.
Doesn't the water mess up the hay? Doesn't it ruin it?
Feed grains in the morning, water in the middle, and hay in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm going to switch phones. My old phones pick up sound better than the new phones.
Oh, okay.
Try me again.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah.
So tell me, Glenn, what did you find on the UCC code and order of merchants and how they're linked?
Well, it's moo.
Yeah.
Order of merchants is moo.
Oh, yeah.
Backwards. It's the nurturer, the pink cow. If you travel through the countryside here, you'll find places that'll put a pink cow on the front lawn to indicate that they're there to help those that are in the know.
Yeah. Fellow travelers stopping through, right?
So that stuff, it seemed from I was told what I was told. It seems that that stuff were maybe the really big stuff with that. Like it's only select people. They help. They
allow
to supposedly, I guess, get around certain.
Yeah.
Because I thought the UCC code. I didn't think that was. I didn't know that was. At least I didn't see anywhere where it was made by this group.
Well, it's a big W.
Mm-hmm.
UCC is a big W, the third breast.
Yeah.
Flip them around, you'll see what happens to C becomes a U. Big W is 3 breasts. So when you have a W followed by a C or a U,
mm-hmm.
or 2 C's with a U, you have the big W. As they speak about Cassiopeia in the sky makes an M or a big W flipped over.
So when I look at that, what should I be wary of? What should I be?
Well, you know that you're dealing with a group that doesn't have your best interest. That's a good place to start.
That's like everywhere I go. It's always
yeah.
It doesn't have my best interest.
What did the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration say this week about his staff? Guy sent out a request for funds to help the election campaign on his letterhead. The minister said, I can't take the blame. That's a flunky in the office. So can you imagine working for these people? You are considered to be a flunky. That's a pawn on the chessboard, disposable. So he can hang around, running around India and Pakistan and China and attending cocktail parties, and he assigns the tasks to people in his office, and when they get caught, he calls them flunkies. If you look at Viator, Viator began in the 300 AD period, 380 or so AD. It's the word victor. If you replace the A with a C, as you have in caca, you're dealing with coprolite.
So, like, this group of Viatorians, I think they're in a post, but they linked to Oregon, Baker City, and McMannville.
Yeah, they're basically the people that set up the network. Think about it. Add an A, which is the name of the new slave assassin out in front, and you have aviator.
Yeah.
Why would Egyptians in 380 AD be preparing a word for people who fly? Aviators. Why would a Californian with money make a spruce goose and grow his nails long? Nails refer to the cross. They also are linked to rails. Why did the Prime Minister of Canada's Chief of Staff resign, a guy by the name of Paul Tessier, about 20 years ago, and was made the head of CNR in Canada? CNR's most important passenger rail service is called Via Rail. The credit card called Visa. The entry point into Canada is with a visa. They're all linked to the Benedictine monks. The Benedictine monks run REGO, the programming center based upon the Virgin Mary, west end of Montreal. In the U.S., you have CNN. CNN is a big W.
What's the link when you see, like, in all these countries you have ABC in America, then you have BBC in London, and in Canada you have CBC. What's that connection?
Well, America is an important place since 1492 because it began a new phoenix. New Phoenix basically set the stage from 1492 to 1992 for a 500-year period. Would be America's time to grow to get to the stars. And then the shutdown period after that of 16 years brings it to 2008, which is the interim period to the next journey, the next phoenix.
So,
clerics have a C at the beginning and a C at the end. And in the middle is the word rail.
Well, that word rail was in like I remember reading no post with that group who they supposedly go like study aliens, UFO type of thing. Call them Raelians.
Raelians?
Yeah.
Raelians.
You said that was a code word?
Yeah.
Mm.
It all links the Benedictines, out of whom came the Knights Templars and the Trappist monks, the place called Clairvaux, which is Clear Valley, if you will, because Vaux comes from Val. It's a glen. And the Benedictines have rules. And Benedict Arnold was a traitor. And the Pope today is called Benedict XVI. So you're dealing with ecclesiastic Freemasonry. The ecclesiastic Freemasonry have a goal, and that's to create a replacement for us. We're Jesus. He's us. He's us. He's us.
Well, that's the goal of ecclesiastic Freemasonry. So, if that's the goal of that particular group, so what's the goal of, say, the military or?
Well, the military is part of ecclesiastic Freemasonry.
Yeah, because the Knights.
Because, the Knights divided into two.
So that's their link. But how about the media? They don't have any.
The media is Elam. The capital of the country called Media was Elam. And Elam is, of course, male. And it's found at the end of the word Jerusalem, Alem, Elam.
Yeah, because
whale. The whales are the monarchs.
You have these groups, right, who are all working towards this goal, but I know I was talking to Jennifer, and she was saying, I was just saying, it's like, because when you make your post, you're speaking to insiders, the way you put it there.
I'm speaking to them because it's senseless speaking to anybody else.
Yeah.
They can't do anything about it. But by speaking to the insiders, I'm basically saying, we know who you are. We know what you're doing. What you're doing is not the intent that creation had when this planet and this copying the codes that creation gave you and are misusing them. And if you don't show a reason why you should not be cleansed from the system, then that will be your fate.
Mm-hmm.
You can be cleansed on this planet by water and by cancer. But you will be cleansed forever post-life by having had your last recombination, which will guarantee you will never, ever be a human again. So if your boss in your secret society has promised you eternal life, it ain't going to happen.
That's the only hope?
It ain't going to happen.
So that's the only hope they have. Like, from what I understand, like, they don't, the concept of what creation is that something that's new to them? It's something they haven't been told?
Well, it's their big prize. They get to come back again. They are reanimated.
But they don't know, you think, that this can happen?
They don't yet understand the true significance of higher power.
Mm.
Though their higher power understands full well that they're not the higher power. And their search for the gate, the fifth dimension, requires answers they have not been able to get. Because only if you can leave this universe through the same door we came in, can you in fact return to the outer side of this universe and be available for use in reconstituting a new and better universe. If you don't understand how that works, you believe that you've been given everlasting life as long as you follow instructions that you are given to hurt and maim other people, to cause poverty, disease, famine. All of these things people do because they believe there's a prize at the end. Christians refer to it as heaven.
Even. So they've been practicing or promoting this since Egyptian times with mummification and all that kind of, your chance to come back. And
yeah.
So these guys
started in the time of Abraham coming to Egypt.
I saw that on History Channel that there was a period where like people, this is after the Egyptian era, but people started buying a lot of these mummies, and certain groups were buying them. And
well, there was a misunderstanding at the time that you needed the entire body.
Yeah.
It took time to grasp the concept of DNA. So, but Moses had it before them. Not Moses, Noah.
Oh yeah, he had the right idea. He had because he had the tablet.
All the animals of the world on a boat that size. He had to be speaking of allegory. Therefore, he had to be speaking DNA.
Yeah.
I've seen I think in Canada, in Niagara Falls, I think there's a museum, it's a Rosicrucian Museum, where they say they have, supposedly, they have Ramses and Seti. First, I don't know, that's from another dynasty, because you say that the important one was the 18th?
Yeah, 18th dynasty was probably in the mid-1500s BC. But Egypt as a place where pyramids were constructed, that occurred around 3000.
Yeah.
The actual creation of the planet, Adam and Eve, you put up a dam and you deal with the penultimate. That's Adam, Adam. Eve is the penultimate, the day before, the letter before, the time before.
Yeah. So, I don't know, so, like, there's obviously just insiders or people who, from everywhere, they've been looking at your site, and now they're looking at my blog. So these people are aware, they're being told,
Well, they're aware of some things. They're not aware of all things. Everybody in that world is kept on the need to know. And they only know those things that are appropriate to the task.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're telling them things outside of their world.
Yeah.
So that would get some type of response. I mean,
you can hear something and ignore it.
So why even bother looking at it?
Hear something and fight against it.
But why bother looking at it? Why go and
Well, you don't know what those people are doing. They could be at the last moment. They just take the hint to go up to in that area up on the shield, or you don't know what their plans might be or what they're going to do until afterwards.
And just on the day they first realize it's right is not the day they act. There's time frame, absorption there, osmosis that has to occur. So, like this week, I wrote to Bell Canada and asked the guy when they are going to reimburse me for the $21 million plus interest that they stole from me in 1987, when they, in fact, worked a deal with the Prime Minister's office to steal the land that I had for my project. That was the problem behind the project never going ahead. It was a conspiracy between Bell Canada and the government of Canada through the Prime Minister's office. The person who responded, obviously a clerk, whose job it is to respond to questions, said I would need more detail. I said, Do you really believe that the management of Bell Canada would like me to explain to you their criminal activity? You, a frontline worker? I said, come on. Just pass the message on to the president. After all, it's their eternity they're dealing with, not yours. And that may get a response or it may not get a response, but it's not important at this stage. What's important is that they be told, because later on, when it comes time, they will be asked the three critical questions. Did you know? When did you know? And what did you do about it? When they're unable to respond having done something positive, they have in fact signed their last recombination notice.
And you'll be there.
I get to explain it to them. I get to walk to the door. I don't make the decision. The decision is done by creation. But because I personally am here to observe, analyze, and conclude, I have to be certain that they were given every opportunity to turn them down.
Yeah.
Creation doesn't expect criminals to turn around overnight. Doesn't even expect them to turn around. But that doesn't mean you don't have a responsibility to give everyone every chance. That's why they drew up a game called baseball. You get told one time, you get told twice, and you get told 3 times. If it goes over your head all 3 times and you can't figure it out, you've struck out. If in fact what you did was latch on to what you hear and decide to look into it further, it's like going to first base. If you keep on working on it and you prove to yourself that there's something there, you move to second base. If you confirm through the preponderance of the circumstantial evidence that it's right, you move to third base. However, everything might end when you're on first, second, or third. That doesn't count. What counts is when you come home.
Yeah, those people, I think that their problem from looking at material and stuff, their problem is they have that, it's with that word faith. That's what they have. They have faith in
faith just means the Father.
Yeah, that's who they're putting everything in.
T-H-I is T-H-E-F-A.
Yeah. So that's
the fat her.
Yeah.
Is male inside the female with a management system added called the nickel. Victoria. Victoria.
What period was the Victorians? That was like
Queen Elizabeth.
1600s, 1500s?
Yeah, what was significant about that period? What was important that happened in that time period?
She was a supposed prude on the outside, but a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy is basically the plan.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy.
Just look at the picture of the map and look at it in detail, and you will see that Portugal is a face, a head of Spain. But above it, in France, the outline of the country is a hippo. Hypocrite, two-faced, Europe.
Yeah.
And if you look down from Portugal across the Mediterranean, it appears as if the face, which is Portugal on the head of Spain, is a decapitated head on a pregnant woman's body, which is North Africa.
Yeah.
If you look at the Middle East, it looks like a frontal lobotomy on a head that is Africa.
What was Africa's role like in the very, very beginning after? Because it seemed like when you trace back like alchemy and those stuff, they seem to go back to Africa. But you say that the movement started in India. So Africa was like what?
Africa was the garden. It was the nurturer. It's where life was simpler and people could live without giving up their life to an employer.
Yeah.
And it was out of Africa, they moved out of Africa, that things began to change. Movement out of Africa went through Madagascar and then down to Antarctica. When the Ice Age began, went underground. When the Ice Age ended, came back out of the underground. Tests were done in Australia, New Zealand, Java, all the way up the Pacific Islands. Finally, the movement went into what is now known as Sri Lanka, which in the old days was attached to India, went inside of India, southern India, on the east coast, the general area called Bengal. Ben is the sun, Gal is a female. They set up shop in a place they call Madras. Ass is crazy. Madras. From there, they began a project making Asians in the Himalayas, sending Roma, which are basically travelers or wanderers, to begin the process of destroying Africa. The revenge began by the movement to the Giza Plateau. It was done by going across the ocean, setting up shop in the area of what we would now call Gaza, Jordan, Mount Sinai. That's where the workers set up shop. Then they began to plot the construction. Giza had to give examples first of how not to do it. Those were the step pyramids built upon the sand and crumbled.
Yeah.
Then they had to show the construction of 3 pyramids. Because at the time, knights, concept of the knight, which was a warrior priest, way. Warrior priests needed armor and munitions that needed, on the one hand, corporate world, and at the same time they needed a control mechanism over the people. So the politics division, the knights and the worker corporate world were assembled together. But the knights divided into 2 parts, religion and military. Had to make pyramids 4-sided instead of 3-sided. And at a later date, statue, which basically would tell anybody that looked at it that times were changing, was built. It's called the Sphinx.
So when they built pyramids in other countries like South America, and these pyramids, I don't think they had a cap. Was that like some, relating to the missing cap? I guess like Giza.
Well, the cat refers to the beginning of animal life, coming out of the ocean as fish or eel, reptiles, and establishing themselves on the land as animals who live out of the water, was done by a small dinosaur that looked like a cat. But the real purpose of the pyramids in America was basically to learn about humans and extract from females their eggs. So when you look at the entire South American continent, which is basically shaped like spine, Chile and the Andes,
yeah,
spine, by extracting things from the spine, they're basically saying they're studying the past.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep moving north out of South America into Central America and into North America, where you have Incas. The word comes from Cain, the builder.
Yeah.
You're moving forward, and there are a lot of divisions: Olmec, Toltecs, all kinds of groups along the way, and you arrive with the Aztecs that become Texas.
So all these architecture, like in Japan, they have I haven't seen pyramids, but I've seen like spears that they build.
Well, they have pyramids in what's those countries? Vietnam and the places close to there. Devoted to the Hindus and the Buddhists and all of that stuff.
Oh yeah, Thailand, I think too.
Oh yeah.
So it's a replica. It's like the body is always two parts. A lung has two parts. A heart has two parts. The brain has two parts. So there's no difference in the world. You have east and west. And then you subdivide east to south and east-north, and west-south and west-north. So the last task they had to do on the North American continent was to develop a second batch of Caucasians for Finland. Finns.
Yeah. Triphibian.
In the middle of the SX.
You got IN in like maybe inside.
Hip, top 10, Phi Beta Kappa. They are the archivists. The archivists always have all the information. Everybody else is only on a task. Vatican has priests out there looking to expand for the purpose of bringing in more money. But only the nuns have access to all the archives. They do it through a system not unlike the game called curling. The idea is you kind of slide in, sneak around, and end up inside in the house, it's called. And the one who has the last rock has the last word because it's called the hammer.
I think that's what all these
hammer is basically the judge.
Yeah.
When he brings out the hammer, that's the last word. The same thing happens in any parliamentary committee. The guy who's in charge gets a hammer. That's why they called Jesse, who was the governor of Minnesota, the hammer. It sounds stupid to some people, looks stupid as a former wrestler, but he's got the hammer.
And that hammer has been used. Thor uses it too. And it also says like I don't know, like second ham or something, or second, second ham. And I guess ham is another type of person.
Ham has two words in it: Ma and Si. Mav is a mother, and the Si. Mare. what is the sea today? There's the Holy See, which has two E's, which, like a tree, is a seer. But you have the sea, which is the creator of life. EA.
Like seed, yeah.
Creator of life, the sea, is the name they give to the Valkyries.
Seeders of life, you said?
Creators of life in
great.
the future is Valkyries.
Yeah. They're so well veiled in this like society because they, set it up where people, with the Alzheimer's and all types of things, so people get nurses.
Well, the three divisions of life: the birthing part, the making of babies is one. The maintenance of life, the hospitals in the middle, and the extraction of the benefits of life. And most people would say, why would you want to help the poor have no way of paying their bills? Well, nuns know that on the one hand, more valuable than money is their DNA. They also know that in a democratic society, the government will pay them, paying these people while they steal their DNA.
That's crazy how we had a world where, people kind of took care of themselves. Now you have, I guess people are so fragmented and they can't even take care of themselves. And so they hire.
But if they were smart people, or if they were criminal people, they have something the manufacturer of babies want: recessive genes that can be inserted into a new egg and a new baby made and tracked, that it can be made to do things for them in the future. It's a cycle of birth and rebirth.
How many babies do you think those nuns give in a lifetime?
Well,
that's a lot of work,
As good as mine, You got nuns working at it. You have Latter-day Saints working at it. You've got those people who claim that monogamy is not the way to go, polygamy is the way to go, but you never know who's the father. Just because there's 20 women and one man doesn't mean him that's supplying.
Yeah. So, like, that makes sense why, nuns, fat bottom ladies, they fight from all that birthing.
Why they would insist on wearing clothes that hides their shape.
Yeah, because I was just going to ask that question.
Yeah.
Those big fat body, because you can see, like, a woman who has a lot of babies, like, it takes a toll on your body. On her body.
Stretches it.
The hips could be really,
There's a reason for everything, and it's never the reason that's most spoken about. They claim they just retain the clothing of the Middle East because they weren't living up to modern times. The burqa, to hide who they are and what they really look like. And to hide, most times they're pregnant.
Yeah. I wonder why, like, how come they have people come into their order? Why don't they just, like, breed people up from inside, you know? Like, breed up
the reason that if you take your DNA from the same place all the time,
oh, yeah,
you don't end up with the most intelligent people.
So, when a nun's giving birth to
they call them foundlings.
Yeah, foundling.
They found in their bed.
When you think any of that DNA is transferred from the nun, her DNA, to the
it's not necessary. It might be, but it's not necessary. Yeah. Artificial insemination can insert the egg and fertilize it.
I always wanted to know that too. Like, if you see certain celebrities or whatever, and they have all the babies, and the baby actually looks like them, to say that, do they mix, or anybody that they're doing that's going to raise the baby? Maybe they decided that they're going to raise the baby. They have to mix some of their DNA so it looks similar, right? You don't want to have two different. That's probably easy for them anyway. But
so, have you ever started like a project, Glenn, of taking like this, you know, watching like all people who are trying to track people's history of who came from orphanages and nunneries?
Well, what better system is there than the net?
Yeah. I was thinking of doing that.
The minute you're on the net, you're telling someone out there you don't know is listening what's in your head.
Yeah.
What you're thinking about, what you're interested in, what you want in life, all those things you're telling. And at the other end, somebody's putting that data into a computer, building a profile, so that when they approach you, they know exactly how to do it. Now, that may be a profile of the egg they made that makes you.
Oh, wow.
So you may not even know it, but they know it. When you're 5 years old, you don't know what they made you for, what they programmed you to do in the future. And they have to give you your signal to start function according to the program that they have installed in you. That's why I keep insisting there are no good people, there are no bad people. There are only people who've been programmed. And we're all programmed. At this stage of the game, college of 6 days, which means 6,000 years, they've been working at this. Everybody has in them recessive knowledge. And every one of them has, to some degree, the information that the system wants out of them at a later stage in life.
Huh. Kind of like what we spoke about yesterday. It's just that, like, you put that disk into your computer and it unlocks that program.
Yeah, and most of the unlocking is done through a device called radio.
Really?
Radio is an ongoing programming system. It follows you around in your car, at your cottage, in your bed at night. Anybody who leaves the radio on all the time while they sleep is being programmed.
Yeah.
I used to do that when I was in high school. When I was really younger. I'd listen to music, pass out, the headphones on, and I was programming myself because my actions were a lot different from what they are now. So, and young people into that do that because they're very like highly influenced by the music they listen to.
Yep.
Yeah. What would you say as far as it's always talk about the women being implanted. What about tampering with men so that person can be a cedar walking around?
Same thing.
Yeah.
We have in us the ability to be male or female.
Mm-hmm.
We start off as female, and if they give us the adjustments to make us male, we can be male. We can be gay. We can be eunuchs.
Mm-hmm.
It's all dependent upon the task they've assigned to us. Right now, they're running out of tasks for males, but they prefer males as the best of the two physical species when it comes to the size of the heart, the size of the lungs, the bone structure. But they prefer the female as the marketing.
Yeah.
The marketing wing must be a nurturer. And of course, the female is the nurturer in appearance, and the breast is the place everybody thinks about when they look at a woman. Not just men, women too, because that's where they began life, was nurturing at the nipple.
Yeah.
In the past 2,000 years, the role of women diminished and the role of men increased, as opposed to the clan mother societies that existed prior to the Ice Age.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're arriving at a new age, and that new age requires a more complete slave and by far a better assassin. The word Sufi gives you a little hint of what they're looking for, because the phonetic word Sufi means enough.
Mm-hmm.
Enough is made up of two words, one and hug. And an assassin was called a thug.
And thug came from India.
Yeah. And they want thugs who can assassinate with one hug.
Yeah, bring you down.
Now, imagine what that might mean. If you happen to be swimming, you know that you can go underwater for 10 to 30 seconds without drowning.
Mm-hmm.
And out of nowhere, from under you, comes someone who grabs you in a hug and drags you down. And they have the capacity not to breathe through the nose, but to breathe through a gill. And they hold you underwater for 10 minutes. you drown.
Yeah.
That's one example of dying with one hug.
Yeah. Tree huggers. Hug.
Yeah. They hug the seers. Trees and seer is the same word. T can be an S.
Yeah.
Trees are seers in one place. Human beings are seers that walk around. But once you've served your purpose, they want to be able to get rid of you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were assassinated by a person who had abilities you didn't have, such as breathing underwater, or on the other side, hibernating,
Mm-hmm.
digging a hole in ice, for example, or in a cave, or in a little hole in an apartment building, and staying there for 6 months without eating. What do you think would happen to the search for you?
Yeah.
You know, they go to rescue people after an earthquake, but within a week or so, they're in the retrieval stage because they don't believe anybody could live for more than a week.
Well, I haven't seen
Bear
that.
can sleep for 6 months.
I haven't seen that symbolism or suggestion, you know, of them just hibernating like that. Like every time I see that,
you see it every day, Jared.
I see with animals.
Theology of the brain. It's called the pineal gland. Pineal has one purpose: to remind you of what you were like when you were a fish or a reptile. And what it manufactures is the chemistry to make that come about. Used as sleeping pills.
Yeah. Well, I see I researched that a while ago. It's the melatonin that comes from
melatonin.
It's reacts. It's from sunlight. Like when you have sunlight, you don't feel it anymore. But once the sun goes down, it kicks in.
Yeah.
Vitamin D.
If you're hiding in a little hole someplace, you can stay there for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Imagine the police having to chase bandits who could hibernate for 6 months.
Yeah. Man, if they even then if that was then you'd have whole new agencies for chasing these superhuman people. That have
they are making them now because they tell you that if they're going to explore the planets, there is no sense sending a person on these long journeys of 6, 7, 8 years as human beings who are awake and functioning, because there really is nothing to do.
But
so they're going to sleep.
Yeah, but their bodies, right? Like a human being's body. If it doesn't eat, like it deteriorates if you're using up energy.
Only if the pineal gland is not functioning.
Oh, okay.
The minute you jumpstart the pineal gland, it's a different body.
Because when I see the bears,
consumption of oxygen and food, and its need for vacating the excrement changes totally. A bear goes into a mode somewhere around 25 to 30% normal activity. So if you need 70% less air, if you need 70% less food, the whole thing changes.
Because when I look at a bear, like, they consume like so much fat that their body can survive.
The more they consume, the longer they can remain.
Yeah.
So, hey.
Also insulation too.
So, but if it's a human doing it, their bodies can't get that big.
Only because the body is not all turned on.
You're burning all that up because you're...
The same thing as a computer. All the stuff is in there. You don't know how to access it. So as you learn to access things, you learn more and more. And they keep blocking you from accessing and have these pop-ups things all the time that get in your way.
Yeah. That's why it feels like you're remembering more than learning it for the first time.
Yeah. It's because these super slaves, like, they have, like, it seems like they have more additional, like, features.
They have more switches turned on, so.
Yeah, well, there's the switches that they can turn on in the body that were there from the beginning. And there are the switches that can now be turned on that are devices which were first made as machines and then converted into technology, finally converted into biology and inserted into the body so that it functions like the rest of the parts of the body and is not visible any more than anything else in the way of biological material in the body. That's why the guy who inserts it has to put a mark on the palate about what he did, because unless he does it, you won't know. And you may need to know at some time in the future if you happen to be a plastic surgeon who's responsible for replacing a device that is hidden within someone's body. You can't have a thing hidden and keep putting it in the same place. People will find it by chopping off the finger or chopping off the hand or whatever. They'll know what starts and stops it. So you got to be able to move it around. The best way would be to put it in the bloodstream and have it move along with the blood without causing any clots or whatever.
Right.
All of those things you can believe are or have been investigated thoroughly.
I mean, it sounds practical. It sounds like something like those things are practical, like as far as going into outer space, like you see those different.
That's
uses.
McGill University and their links to the CIA. What is the CIA doing but making better spies? What do spies do but assassinate?
Yeah, and they show these spies, like people get the impression that like they're men, but I have a feeling a lot of them are women, female spies and assassins.
There won't be any men. In the years to come, the role of men is get back inside and be ready to be called upon for cloning purposes, but at the same time, you're the infrastructure, you're the body that makes it all happen.
It's a patriarchal structure, because that's what what we live in of the infrastructure is patriarchy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And when they talk about father, they're not talking about a male. They're talking about a fat her.
So in essence, there won't be any Neanderthals, female or males.
No, they'll all be combined into one.
And that's something else. That's the new man. That's the new.
Well, it's what they call the Trinity, triune man. God the fat her.
Mm-hmm.
The Son is on the inside, and the G host is what basically holds all of the new technology.
So
and he's the dean of knowledge, therefore he's the Neanderthaler.
So like all these insiders, right, or people who are listening, you've been saying this for years, Glenn. If they can't get through their brains that every species of human is basically going to be eradicated, you know, I guess there really is no point of them ever coming back.
Well, that's the point. The job that we have now is to define once and for all, is there any redeeming social value left on this planet? Are there still functioning brains around? Or that has a consequence that deals with how you end the function of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do it by mass extermination, not caring who's in the way, or do you do it by cancer, for example, where you can cherry pick this one as opposed to that one, and this one and that one?
How does that work with the cancer? You can cleanse people.
Radon.
Yeah.
Radon
it recombines DNA
and causes lung cancer.
But it doesn't. What does it do to the DNA? Like, you're saying it erases it?
Well, cancer basically means a cell that is growing out of control.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's just taking away people's lives. That's not.
It could very well be that there's a link between some recessive gene waiting for radon.
Yeah, because we all have, at least, I don't know if all of us, but I know that people have cancerous cells in them. They're just sitting there waiting to be called.
Yeah.
Called upon.
The concept here of the time of Noah's Ark is an ark has controls, and you can guide it from one place to another. That's what we had when we had males and females and Neanderthalers. We could guide the direction. But what's about to happen is an exploration of the universe. Exploration of the universe, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know what's there.
The raft.
Yeah.
So the raft replaces the craft. And being at the front is not important. There's no front.
Yeah.
I think I know now what
is
they
as
mean
important as front. You go backwards in time in order to prepare the vehicle, because the vehicle of the past, a hermaphrodite, is more appropriate. So that's why you are living in an age that the place I went for programming at the age of 5 is called Regal. Go back again. Regal. That's where they're training the border guards, is at Rigaud.
With the craft of Rigaud, it's interesting. The word curtain, it's in English.
Yeah.
It has the word
Rigaud.
And
a raft in French is radeau.
Yeah. And it's linked to
B, D, P, Q, and G are interchangeable. In lowercase letters, they all look the same.
Yeah.
All you need is to flip and turn. So phonetically is the most important. So when you're spelling things, if you spell it R-E-G-O, you're spelling the same word as if you were spelling R-I-G-A-U-D. In French, Rigaud. In English, Rigaud.
If that word curtain, I was going to say it's linked to the word kettle and circle. And that kettle,
it's got the U-R and aim in there. So you're behind the looking glass. You're another version. And CU can be CA, and that means coprolite, Ca.
Yeah.
That's why Canada is the big shit, because it has Ca, Ca, Ca. CA for Ca, then NA, turn the N sideways, you got another C, so that makes Ca, Ca, and then DA, penultimate of D is C, that gives you Ca, Ca, Ca. The most important place in the world, you know.
Seriously.
This just sounds funny from
Top shit. King shit at Island.
So,
the woman at Citizenship and Immigration who wrote to me, her name is Burton.
Yeah.
Well, B is penultimate of C.
B. I've been seeing that link a lot.
Can be a P. P can be a T. All of these things all fit together, but in that case, if you're looking for a D instead of a B, that's simple. B and D are interchangeable. And instead of Burton, you change it to a D and you have turd. T-U-R-D.
That's what I've been finding. I found, I've been finding a lot of, that URs and things, but there's this guy I've been researching into. His name is Winston Shrout, right? And you can't find any other word in the dictionary. In my dictionary, I can't find any other word except for shroud. And shroud is a vessel, is like a cover, and it's on a vessel too. It's something that they put on vessels, and it's with a D. And so you just put the shroud on top of shroud, and the only connection I could see is the UR between T and D. And so that person, it suggests to me that he comes from shit, and they made him. But like, I guess a lot of people, they just won't realize that they come from shit.
Well, it doesn't appeal. I mean, the minute you tell people that there's a good possibility that they were reanimated.
They're gonna hang up on you, Glenn. This guy just tried telling me I'm a piece of shit.
And that's why they use that in the language. You're a piece of shit.
Really
are.
I come from shit, yeah.
Yeah, and the way the connotation is used is to kind of like get people away from that, to discourage.
Yeah. It's always mirrored.
Yeah.
And when you're going out with a girl, they call it going on a date. Well, did you ever look at a date?
Yeah, it looks like shit.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And that's what your wallet feels like afterwards, right? So I mean, what I was trying to bring up.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
And if we don't realize that, we're all going down together.
Yeah.
But if we can find 13 functioning brains, we can at least, if nothing else, buy 5,000 more years. 5,000 more years is enough time to smarten up, big enough out, so that when we leave this universe through the Stargate called the fifth dimension and enter the sixth dimension, we will at least bring a proper representative group of the lessons learned in this universe. If we leave as 13, we're basically scratching bottom. So let's try the best we can to tell enough people without arguing with them and allow them to come to their own conclusions. We don't have much time. End of the Northern Hemisphere is 2062. Could happen any time before then. We're in the window.
Yeah.
The likely end is 2058, but there's that 4 years leeway at the end.
Right.
Quite sure, but it began in 2008 and ends in 2058. So that's 50 years. That's linked to the number 5 and nickel and pentagon and all of that. So maybe, just maybe, there's enough people listening in without saying they're here. According to the cell, anytime that we're on the telephone, there is a minimum of 2,000 additional listeners.
Whoa.
So out of those 2,000, which are basically known in their own world as reader analysts, maybe some of them can smarten up before it's too late. In any event, the time has come for me to go distribute some hay.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Speak to you guys again the next time.
All right. It was good talking to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.